hello. Good afternoon. Nice to see you, nice. Welcome. So first of all, I will just do some introductions. No, not some introductions, some advertisement. I'm just gonna, who am I gonna introduce? Khaleesi, the wall. So some advertisements. There is still, I believe, 2 rooms left at the hotel that I'm doing a retreat at Easter. And I think they're available until the 7th of March. So you've got not long. I think it's the 4th today, if you want to book those rooms. I think you're still available to stay outside, but they're the last 2 at the hotel. If you want to join, that is for the Easter retreat, the 7th to the 13th or 14th, I forget the dates. What else? You can join, I think you can still join my Zoom meeting tomorrow night. I'm not positive about that. You might have had to sign up earlier, but if not, you can join the one for May or July. I think I've got one May and July coming up. Great. Yeah, and just so you know about the new system on YouTube, is that in order to know when the next talk is, you've got to subscribe to my channel and look in the live stream section, and it should tell you when the next live stream is. If there's none up there, that means there's none up and coming. Yes, I've got one for next Sunday, I think, on there at the moment. Yes. Okay, that is all the advertisements currently. So we shall begin with the talk. There's just such a cute little bird out the window. It's not quite spring yet here, but it's beginning to get there. We're having lots of sunny days. So yeah, all the cute little plumpy birds coming out. Okay, what is consciousness? Well, that was a very inventive title. I have to say that sometimes I get a little bit stuck trying to think of titles. So if you can think of any really good titles or subjects you'd like me to speak about, please put it in the box below, in the comments below, for up and coming talks, because it's hard to think of titles. It's like 12 years of titles my brain has invented. I could make a book. Maybe it could make a poem if you put them all together. Yeah. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, and please, if you want us to support my channel, please make sure you subscribe and give a thumbs up to the videos. Yeah, this is important if you want to support what's happening on this channel. Danke. Okay, what is consciousness? That is a great question. What is consciousness? What is consciousness? Bam, 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 bam. So in the end, I don't think any of us know what consciousness is. There is consciousness happening, like that's for sure. There is the perception of what is. So there is certainly consciousness happening, but we can't step out of consciousness and look at it and decipher what it is. In waking up, it can feel like you are looking at consciousness, that your personal awareness turns back and looks, it sort of looks back and says, you know, keeps asking who is looking, and then it realizes that there is something looking at it, and it feels like somebody understands that. But you can't actually see consciousness, because consciousness is what's seeing. It's a bit like if you imagined being in a virtual reality game and the character trying to, so you're playing a character like Laura Croft, is that her name? Laura Croft. So you're playing Laura Croft, and then Laura Croft trying to look back to see who is looking through the virtual reality goggles. Like, she could never see that person, but yet she is being seen by that person. And that's a bit what it's like here. We can't look at consciousness. But understanding what consciousness is not the important part. That's something that happens because the mind is curious and it like wants to dissect and know all the different bits. So it's talked about, but that's not the important part. The important part is the awakening, which has many stages to it. One of them being the recognition by the person of consciousness. And then there's this awakening where there can seem to be a parting of the clouds of the person, and consciousness is just looking. There's just pure consciousness, and it sort of recognizes itself. But there's these different awakenings that happen. So the important part is to point out what consciousness is and why that's important. But it's not so important to know what consciousness is. Like, the more and more you get into this, the more you realize that our nature beyond words is wonder, and that wonder isn't inherently frightening. Like, fear arises for the person wants to know and understand everything. But it's not wonder, it's not knowing that's scary. It's the person in a survival dynamic that is trying to perceive its environment to work out if it's going to survive or not, or how it survives. And then it begins to project that onto the wonder of what we are. So for the person that is about survival, fears not knowing, but the not knowing of who we are, of consciousness, is actually not the problem. The person feels scared connecting with that sometimes and contemplating that, but it's not a problem, and it's not scary in itself. Wonder is wonder, and that is the nature of ourselves beyond language and beyond the person. So one thing we know for sure is that in every moment there are two things happening. There is a perception of what's happening, and there is a sense of I am. So a sense of being and a perception of what's happening. And these two things are always there. Like, they never go to sleep. They never disappear. They're always there. You might think they disappear in deep sleep, but my explanation to that is it's only that in deep sleep you do not have memory. So you cannot remember if they're there or not there. So therefore deep sleep is absence to you. It's an absence of memory, just like early childhood, there is absence of memory. And before birth, there is absence of memory. But in actuality, they always exist. There cannot be existence without perception. That's also like a bit of a Zen koan. There's a koan, a very famous one, that's like, what's the sound of a tree falling in a forest if there's no one there to hear it? So it's also like, does life exist if there is no consciousness of it? You can't really get to the end of that. That's quite a brain tease. But that's not the point. In your experience, is there ever experience without consciousness and a sense of being? The being is this sense of existence. In the West, we get very muddled with the idea of consciousness and subconsciousness and unconsciousness. And I'm not talking about unconsciousness as in you're unconscious of dynamics or conscious of dynamics, or the personal awareness where you can move your attention from the clock to the foot to your thoughts to your fingertip. I'm talking about the consciousness that's perceiving all of this, that's perceiving that movement, that's perceiving this room. I used to think that consciousness and thoughts were intertwined, and I thought if you did not think, you could not be conscious, because in my mind they were so interlinked. And that was even after quite a lot of internal introspection. Oh, I can't say the word suddenly. Internal nasal gazing. That was my conclusion. And it wasn't until there was some form of energetic awakening where I began to see that the consciousness exists prior to thoughts, prior to that narration that's going inside of your head about who you are and what you like or don't like. And it's the same with that I amness, the I am. And they're so closely you. Sorry, that doesn't make very good English, but they're the consciousness and the I am become interwoven with the character and with the story of you. And because they're so close, they're so immediate, they're the most immediate element to you, it always feels like you are an imagination, you are somebody that's moving in time, you are a thought, you are an image, you are a person, you are your feelings, you are your sensations, but they're not actually interwoven. Thoughts, feelings, ideas of you come and go, whereas the consciousness and the I am never come and go, ever. They're always here. And they're totally empty of anything and full of everything. You could say they're nothing and everything simultaneously. Their consciousness doesn't contain anything. It's empty, 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 empty. Nothing, 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 nothing. It's empty. And the I am by default is love. It's like an absolute embracing of everything. Ramana Maharshi says the I am is in the heart. Like it manifests, its first place it manifests into existence is from the heart, which I really get and is really beautiful. What happens in early childhood somewhere is there is an identification with thought. So the mother, the father, the caregivers are saying to you, you are somebody, you are this person. And the baby identifies more and more, the young toddler identifies more and more with this thought. And that's inevitably uncomfortable because who you are is limitless, is boundless, is still, is no thing and everything. So there's total emptiness looking out that is love. But then when you begin to identify with thoughts, it becomes restrictive, obviously. And just like when you get angry, there's an energy in your body. When you identify with thoughts, an energy arises in your body, holding a sense of self inside. This sense that I am someone. And weirdly, that I am someone is kind of slipping away often, but the person is only recognizing when it's there. Because otherwise there's nothing to recognize. When you're not there, when you're not identified, that you can't recognize that. It's not an event, it's a no event. But you can recognize yourself being there because that is an event. And when there's less identification with this idea of yourself, with the character, you begin to feel more happy, more contented. And then the projection goes out to the external world saying, it's because my parents are good, it's because I got birthday presents, it's because I have a huge house, it's because I am good, whatever story it narrates. And then identification, there's more identification with the person again. And then the person narrates the story that it's something external. It's because my partner doesn't love me in the right way, because this is a problem or that is a problem. I don't have enough money. It's not, non-duality isn't denying that there isn't problems in the external life, but a lot of it is illusory, is a misidentification and a perception of what's happening. So our identities, can build off lots of thoughts of, I'm not good enough, I am better than, I am bad, I'm shameful, I'm fantastic, I'm the best, I'm an artist, I'm a mother, I'm a father, simply I'm a woman, or I'm a man, or I'm non-binary. There can be all these identifications that happen, and it gives the experience of really being real, like there is somebody here experiencing life, whereas there's not actually somebody here experiencing life. There is a character which is playing out, but that's not the experiencer of life. And that character has a narration, and when there is identification with the narration and with the character, that narration is real, more real than what's happening. And this creates lots of seeking that will never get anywhere. It's like a hamster in a wheel, seeking to be whatever or have whatever you believe to be happiness, but it's your belief. Whereas happiness, true happiness, is not found in time. That's pleasure, which comes and goes. And there can be contentment, which comes and goes. Like there is, you can feel very contented with the material life that you have, but it's not the true happiness or the deep sense of relaxation you're looking for. That is the waking up of consciousness. So rather than consciousness seemingly being asleep and hidden in the background, there's a waking up of it. Where it's no longer identified with a character, but is free as it is and recognized. It's not hidden. There is a knowing of it. And there is a shift in perception from being an identified person that's walking around this world to consciousness experiencing itself as consciousness. And the I am being free. Not being I am good, I am bad. And this has two effects. I think it changes the person. It's not, I don't believe in an enlightened person. I think that we're all evolutionary beings which can continuously improve and evolve on the psychological level. So it doesn't enlighten the person. Development, improvement never ends. There can be stages of people's evolution. So you can see some people that, have never contemplated who they are or what they are or psychology, and you might be able to perceive that they're less evolved than you psychologically or spiritually. So there's like seemingly different levels to the personal psychology and evolution. But there's never going to be someone that's finished, because the nature of life is to expand. So there's so much potentiality of what the human can be, and it can just keep going further and further and further until you explode into a massive puff of light, if that's possible. Can light puff? So that is endless. But the shift in perception is like a deep relaxation. There's some teachers, and myself included, call it the end of seeking. It's like a deep relaxation that's always there, because it's no longer character looking, but this emptiness that's looking. So it's like there's a connection to who you truly are. There's not a lostness from a deeper level. So the character, even when you have this connection, the character could feel fear, the character could feel confusion, but behind that, or in the midst of that, there is a deep connection to this expanded way of being, that who you are is totally empty, and all things is totally empty. Yeah. What else to say? So here we are. Ironically, it sounds so complex in words, but as you have the awakenings and you go along the apparent path, the pathless path, it becomes more and more simple. Because it's your most intimate sense of being. It's just very difficult to talk about, because non-duality is not two-ness. You know, it's beyond the mind, so the mind thinks in two. So we're kind of using our words to try to get to and point to a place that's not two. Here she goes. I don't know if you can hear her. Woof! What she's actually saying is, "Woman, give me more food, you stingy beep." That is the precise translation of that bark. When you have a dog, you know exactly what barks they have. That is a woman, "I've not had enough grub, feed me more." Which she always wants more, especially when chicken is in the mix. She does have this very funny thing that she does with me, but she doesn't do it so much for me. She used to do it with my dad, and towards the end my dad was quite ill before he passed. It's so bad. What she does is she woofs at the door, and then you open it, and then she goes and does a loop around the garden, but doesn't come. Then you go and sit back down, and then she goes woof. And for some reason she was obsessed with doing this with my dad. But my dad was like this big Scottish guy with a deep voice, and I think his, "Oh, you blimmin' dog, what are you doing?" And I think his voice just used to really excite her. Yeah. She sometimes drove him a bit crazy. yeah, when Khaleesi came over from Thailand, she was quite crazy. And when we came over from Asia, I'd been living in Asia and Australia for quite a few years. And when we came over, I had to stay with my parents for 3 months, and she'd never really lived in a house before, or and you know, she's still quite young and had that really hyper energy. And she's, yeah, my poor parents. And they already had 2 dogs. She didn't poo in the house. That she knew not to do, that she knew she had to do that on the grass. But yeah, she did a lot of other things. Okay. Ruddy dog, that's what you used to say. You're a ruddy dog. Okay, so if you want to ask questions, we'll move to questions now. You can do through YouTube chat, and if you put question and then write the question, because otherwise it's hard for me to find in amongst the thousands and thousands of YouTube chat that I get. Alternatively, you can write it on Skype. My Skype address is Lisa Cairns 12. That's pinned at the top of this YouTube chat. And you can call in by Skype, but please put on Skype, call me, don't just call in. And I will call you when I'm ready. Danke. Oh, what a terrible job I've done on my glasses. So let's just open Skype. On the ready, get set, go. Question. Thank you. Does Lisa play any video games? Not really. I can't take, as I'm getting older, I can't take so much internet time, you know. I do a lot for my work on the computer, so I can't really play video games. Who is Lisa? Question, Michael. Lisa, are you familiar with the American-born teacher Adida Samaraji? He began his teaching work in 1972 and died in 2008. Beloved, taught about consciousness itself and the way of the heart. I am conscious of Adida. I have a friend of mine who was his disciple and lived in California. In I think they had a community there, a big community. No event. Can light puff should be a new koan. Funny. Question. Does the experiencer understand itself only beyond the senses? And if so, is that a feeling? Yeah, I really don't know what that question means. Does the experiencer understand itself beyond the senses? And if so, is that a feeling? I don't know what you mean by that question. But one of my awakenings, which was so deep for me, was when I was in Australia. No, it wasn't Australia. It was India with Roger. And I've been going to these satsangs, not Roger's satsangs, but I think it was, his name was Caesar Terrell's satsangs, and I fell asleep on the bed, or maybe I wasn't asleep, we don't know what happened, but in the sleep I woke up and there was nothing else. So there was no room, there was no feeling, there was no thought of Lisa, there was nothing else. There was just awakeness. And that could sound terrifying, like you're stuck in something, but it wasn't terrifying. It was free. It was just awake, but it had no, and I mean like no form, as in like I couldn't perceive a table or a room or anything. It wasn't dark, it was just no color. It was just the absence of everything. But yet there was a consciousness. And after no time, so it could have been forever or never, because you couldn't perceive time, there was no movement of anything. After no time, a thought popped up and said, this is what they talk about. And then another thought said, but if they're talking about it, who are they talking to? Because I didn't know Lisa, I didn't know who I was. And then it was like a domino effect that Lisa came back into the picture. It's like boop, 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 boop. And then suddenly, you know, like her memories, her sensations, her ideas, her thoughts, her feelings came back in. And then the room came back in. So then the sounds of the tuk-tuks outside and the rickshaws and the people on the street and the animals and the cows. And then the room came back in and the light came back in. And I was just like blown away. I was like, wow. So before everything happens, there is this consciousness. So that is the primary. So that was an experience, but it sort of separated everything out. It made me realize that consciousness was prior to me, prior to the world, prior to everything. So it didn't need the world, it didn't need me, or it didn't need anything to be, which then you can contradict in later teachings. But in this experience, it really like shook my world and it's awakening. And after that, there was no doubt what consciousness was. There was still, like Lisa came back and there was still identification, but there was like this opening that had happened. There was no doubt about it. But when we're speaking about consciousness, like, and also teaching about consciousness, like this, the way in which consciousness is experiencing this world is through the senses. So in this world, you can't separate out. You can't have this experience where you cut off the rest of the world and pull out consciousness. Like consciousness is in all things. So you could say that consciousness is in the senses, and that the sensed and the sensing are one and the same thing. So the feeling of the bum and the seat are the same thing. So you can't pull anything out from one another. Yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question, because I didn't understand the question, but maybe it touched on something. Yeah. Hi, Joss. So it's nice to see your waves and hearts. Question. Dowie. I had a short experience that showed me that the most stressful moments that the body had experienced physically and mentally and emotionally was where the I was most present. Yeah, I would say, I call it more the identification with the character and less identification with the character now. But yeah, the more that there is identification with the character, the most suffering there is. So when it's like really intense identification with the character, then there is intense suffering. So when I was with Roger, so Roger was my teacher, Roger Castillo. I lived with him in the forest for a few years, and we were very remote. And what I realized in that time was that in the beginning, I projected onto situations my happiness and unhappiness. But then as time went on and I paid more attention to the experience, I began to see that when I was really identified, then my mind would look to situations to project a problem on. And when I was less identified, I'd be more happy. And it actually wasn't causal. So it wasn't because of things. It was because of identification and less identification. We don't know why that happens. Like that is, why that identification happens and why it comes and goes. Like that part is grace. The breaking of the identification with the character is grace. Like, it'd be amazing one day if scientists found that place in the brain, eh? It almost seemed it was added to the tension, trauma. All of that temporarily disappeared for maybe 10 minutes. It felt very freeing and there was not I anymore. Yeah, it's super healthy for the body as well. Like very relaxing. I'm not one of these people that believes that if you disidentify then you'll totally be healthy or anything like that. There's also a lot more to it, but it's also really good for the body because there's a relaxation that happens, a deep relaxation. The thoughts and the identification came back. Love to hear your perspective on this. Is this going in the right direction? Well, I don't know if it's going in the right or wrong direction. There is only one direction, so that's the direction it's going. But that's a lot of pressure to put onto me, and that's a big responsibility to give another person. Like, is this going in the right direction? We don't know. That's something that that is unknowable. The right or wrong direction. Yes. It's also not what you want, really, for me to answer questions like that. Like, is this going in the right or wrong direction? Like, it's okay to speak about this subject and to learn, but in the end, you want somebody that encourages you to look in and find your own direction in the character, not someone that's telling you the direction. Yes. It's very tempting, though, isn't it, to look to someone and be like, oh, please just tell me the freaking direction. Jesus Christ, why can't you be my sat nav? Sorry, I didn't mean to do that so aggressively. But my cup bounced on the slate coaster. The slate coaster. Yeah, so I would say go inward when you want to ask someone, am I going in the right or wrong direction? Go inward. It's that's ultimately what you want. Khaleesi footage in the intro which runs before the talk, please. Yes. Is there even a need to pressure awakening? Is there even a need to pursue awakening if we're already that? Doesn't it suffice to be present, rest in the I am? There's two answers that I'd give to that question. Is firstly, the idea that you have a choice to pursue awakening or not. Like, so it's tempting to believe that we have free will and that we're choosing because it seems that way. So we can update our thinking by saying, oh, should I go for a run now, or should I sit and watch TV? If I go for a run, then I lose this amount of calories and I can have a bigger dinner. Or if I sit and watch TV, then I actually put on calories. So because we can have this contemplation, we believe then that there is inherently somebody here that's making a choice. Whereas if you look into the nature of thinking, you'll realize that thoughts are arising and you're not in control of the thoughts and you're not in control of the decision. They arise with this narrative as if they're choosing, but it's just a mechanism that the brain is using in order to update itself to be able to select the best choice, but there's not actually somebody that's in control of that. So say if you decide to sit on the sofa and watch TV rather than going for a run, You might then blame yourself for being lazy or something, but this is predestined in you from billions and billions of years ago. It couldn't have been any other way. But that's something you have to investigate rather than me telling you. Ramesh Balsekar, another teacher of mine, he used to say, in the end of the day, take a glass of whiskey, a big one, a very big one, and go back through the day and see if you can find the moment a choice began. It's great contemplation. Yeah. So that is one question. So, and he always used to say as well, like, you're in the tiger's mouth. Like, I mean, I remember years after I started seeking just being like, why the hell did I get into this subject? But it was like, I couldn't have done anything else. Like, when you begin to ask these questions, you can't stop yourself. It's not like you can then zip up your brain and forget everything you've learned. Like, I'm not going to ask questions about the nature of reality. I'm not going to think outside the box. But it's all going to disappear. Once you've started asking the questions, you're in the tiger's mouth. Yes. So that's that I would say about that. And doesn't it survive to put the present? But if you're putting your attention in the present moment, I assume that is in some form or another a pursuit of awakening, like you're doing it for an idea of something. But yeah, I'm totally into that. I think it's a really great exercise to do, is putting the attention in the I am or the empty looking. And I would totally recommend that unless you're having PTSD or OCD. Then I would look to do something else. Yeah. Question. Enda. Hi Lisa. How does one navigate with constant chronic bodily pain? Yeah, I'm sorry to hear you're in constant chronic bodily pain. Yeah, that's difficult to navigate. And the last thing that the mind wants to do is put the attention in the I am, because you're in physical pain. Yeah. I don't want to dismiss your experience. I'm sorry about that you're in constant physical and bodily pain, chronic pain. But I would just give some observations, and maybe that alleviates something. So currently, most of you most probably know that Khaleesi is not in great shape. She had some heart problems, and she's also got arthritis. I'm not sure how bad the arthritis is for her, because we can't communicate about it. But one thing I'm pretty sure about is that her experience of pain is different to humans' experience of pain, because she has no ability to think about it and to narrate it and to put it into a timeline. So her experience is really, really present with the pain. In a way, you could say for her experience, even though it's obvious her body is in pain, there is no pain because she cannot perceive it. Another thing that I notice about dogs is that if they're in pain or they're hurt, they're still very good at falling asleep. So I notice that there must be like a deep relaxation that's also there. Like, you know, sometimes she can come in hobbling, and you know, she sits on her bed, she does her turns and she sits down on her bed, and then she's asleep within seconds, even though she's been hobbling or having lots of pain. Yeah, so basically what I'm saying is I think that our thinking exacerbates pain. And that might not make it any better for you in the moment. You might be like, yeah, no shit, Lisa. I've worked that out for myself. But there could be an examination of your narrative and your stories around it, around your pain and what that experience is. But I hope that that doesn't dismiss your pain. Like, I'm not trying to be dismissive or bypass it in any way. Yeah. Pain is pain. It is painful, especially if it's chronic. Yeah. Okay. This question. Doesn't one have to look at the dark side of their nature before we become whole? I suppose that you're speaking on the human level. I mean, you could be speaking on the absolute level, because you could call it like the dark and the light, like the nothing, the emptiness, and the light being the love. So you could be like, don't you have to look at the emptiness first? But I don't think you mean that. I think you mean the character, but that's in the character world. If you've got lots of shadow and there's lots of seeking, then I assume that non-duality will be hidden from you, because you'll be very invested in the world. When there's lots of shadow, unconscious shadow there, then you're seeking lots of things, you're trying to avoid lots of things, and so you're very much in time, in thought, in duality. So often that needs to be looked at, but it's not a prerequisite. It's not like it's like non-duality is here. Consciousness is here, whether you look at it or not. But having said that, having a really dense character with lots of identification, then I mean, that's going to most probably stay veiled. But my point is that they're on two different levels. Like, consciousness is always watching the person, so it's not the person that wakes up. So it's not the person that becomes whole and becomes enlightened. That's very disappointing. We all want to be the perfect person that is endlessly the superhero, but it's not that person that wakes up who is experiencing that. And I don't think the shadow ever fully goes. I think there's a part of, the character has shadow. That's part of being a human. We do have this like predator side to us. Yeah. But most of the time, I would say most people that have awakening have most probably become conscious of their shadow. They know that they've got dark sides and they're aware of it. And, it's most probably very reduced and not acted out. Shapico. What is the fastest way to stop social anxiety? Any advice for someone on stage in front of people? Yeah, I would go to a therapist that works in social anxiety. You can look up online. I'm not sure what the best therapy is for social anxiety. Maybe somebody can comment in the YouTube comments. But yeah, like I would go and do therapy to work out why this social anxiety is arising. Like, what is that about? And there's most probably lots of techniques that could be super helpful for it. Yeah. So waking up isn't really about you having social anxiety or not having social anxiety. Although these things through the process seemingly get settled down and challenged and changed, but it's that is a character that's been conditioned, and in that conditioning there is something that's gone awire with social interaction for many different reasons. But even with that, even if you've got social anxiety, there is still consciousness experiencing that person. So there's always consciousness and the I am here. And I always recommend to people to put the attention in the I am and the consciousness. But if you want to go deeper into it, I would recommend working one-on-one with somebody that specializes in that. Really challenge it. What is love like? How deep does it go? Can you disappear into love? Yet to me, true love is this, the I am, the everything side, and it's completely unconditioned. It has no conditions. It's loving for no reason. And can I disappear into it? Like to know true love, it's not yours. There is no I there. Like the more it becomes present, it's that the identification with that character is diminishing. So it's not that you disappear into the love, although that maybe is what it can feel like. It's more that you stop believing, there stops being this entanglement with being an illusory character that is moving in time, that is seen to be a functioning that's happening, that's part of the body and part of a requirement for living in this society. But who you are is this I am and empty looking. But yeah, some people put it in poems and put it in a romantic way of disappearing into love. But there's not even a you that could disappear into love. The yous never existed, even when there's identification. It's just that identification gets cut, you could say, and it's like the love is being freed up. The love is there even when you feel hatred and totally uncomfortable and in hell. The love is there. Ben, if you've got OCD, PTSD, what would you suggest, assuming you're already getting therapy? The problem with getting therapy for OCD and PTSD is, you need somebody that's really specialized in it. So I would just read up on it and, get as much information on the subject as you can. Yeah. And when you're not having PTSD or OCD, then you can do the I am practice and you can do emotional release. But when it is present, I would advise not to do that. I mean, in a way, you've got to find out for yourself. But my experience is that it can sometimes just exacerbate it. Yeah. But just inform yourself. Yeah. There is so much information, like free information. When I first started seeking, there wasn't all this free information, and I was very young and didn't have the money. But now there is like huge, vast amounts of free information out there. It's a blessing and not a blessing, I can see, because there was limited information. It kept me on quite a narrow path. You know, I didn't experiment lots, but also I can see it's great as well. How does consciousness allow a disaster like earthquake in Turkey to occur? Hey Vahid, thanks for your question, and I'm so sorry to the people in Turkey. It's horrible what's happened. Yeah, what a tragedy for people. If we look at humanity though less personally, destruction and growth, so death and birth, is happening everywhere indiscriminately. So there is meteoroids. I've forgotten the word. Out in space, crashing into each other. There is stars exploding. There is new planets being formed. There is black holes where things disappear into and we don't know what happens. There is species becoming extinct on this planet. Like every time we walk, we most probably are killing lots of insects, especially, when we're walking on grass or something. Everywhere you look, there is death and destruction. You know, and even though it's really awful what happened in Turkey, and I'm not saying it should happen or that it doesn't make it really sad, but there will be birth out of that, equal amount of birth out of it, but just not in the forms that we expect. So basically, believing that, you know, God or consciousness shouldn't allow bad things to happen is not really understanding non-duality, not two-ness, and how there is no birth or death, and that birth and death aren't opposites but a continuum of the same thing. And that has to be through investigation. Thanks, Fahid, for your question. Johid, best remedy for social anxiety is exposure. Yeah, I hear exposure therapy is really good. Expose yourself to social interactions over and over without expectations. I think there is something called exposure therapy where you can do it with a therapist so you don't traumatize yourself. My social anxiety went away when I realized it was all trauma from childhood that I didn't want the world to see, which includes my shadow, which is acting through me. Oh, thanks, Boeing, for saying that. Wow, question. Why do emotions get trapped in the body? Yeah, that's interesting. I presume it has to do with memory and the way we're narrating. Like when I watch Khaleesi, she does remember bad experiences. Like lately there's been this dog on a walk that's been really awful to us. And I noticed the other day that the day before it attacked us, and then when I went back to that place, she didn't want to go. So she does have some form of memory. And but I also noticed that she's really quick to get over things. You know, you change a situation, she does a shake, she does a yawn, and it's gone quite quickly. Although if you put her in the same position again, she remembers it. But so I assume that it's getting stuck because of narration and the way we're narrating and the identification with that narration. Yeah. And then the other reason, the reason that we remember things, like we remember traumas and bad experiences, is so we can evolve and not repeat them and survive in a better way. Yeah. I found a lot of self-hatred and shame here. It makes sense why no self and non-duality was attractive here. Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's a really interesting reflection as to why you got into non-duality. Like, I think part of the attraction here for non-duality was like, if I'm no self, then I can deal with very difficult people and very difficult family members, and it won't be disturbing. So I can empty myself to be the perfect rescuer, to be the perfect helper. You know, so it's you notice these things after you've been on the path a long time, like why that was attractive. There's also something else. Like, I know that I went to talks and listened to non-duality, and this love would bubble up when I heard about beingness. But yeah. US veterans get great results with mushroom therapy. Totally. And there's places now where it's becoming legal to do mushroom therapy. I think Switzerland is one. Maybe Canada as well. I'm not sure, but I know Switzerland, if you're in Europe, you can do mushroom therapy. I think that mushrooms are amazing. However, be sensible. I'm not inviting anyone to not be sensible with it. You know, it's still illegal in a lot of countries, and there is lack of research happening because of it being illegal. But yeah, the results are staggering. Yeah. Yes. Someone says, is that legal in the US? I don't know if it's legal in the US, but I know, like, in the UK, you can get onto trial programs. So you can go to universities and become a test patient for them. I don't know about the US though, and it maybe is different from state to state. Dowie, I think you once said that awakening is an energetic shift. Do you think that if somebody learned how to channel, they could more easily embody that shift? I don't know about that, Dowie. Yeah. I don't know. Channel what? An alien? It's an interesting idea because, like, if you're channeling, it's like you're letting go of yourself and letting another self come through you. It kind of happens with empaths. Like, when you're a really strong empath, you're kind of doing that. You're kind of stepping out of the way and, like, allowing the other person in you. Like, that's how empaths do it, is they sort of embody and become the other person. That's why it can be very difficult energetically for empaths. Yeah, and also healers as well. But I don't know the answers to these questions. Meteors. Meteorites. Thank you. If somebody's recommending TRE, trauma release exercises, look up Oliver Psychedelic Therapy, comedy but well explained. Cool. Yeah, so you can see this in the YouTube chats. If you're watching this afterwards, you can go and see people's suggestions. Thanks for your suggestions. The love you speak of and the love we feel is different. Most of us feel a dependency love, i.e. I'll love you so long as you... Yeah, totally. So the love I speak about is not dependent on anything. It's unconditioned. Totally unconditioned. So it just loves for no reason. It's just love. And it loves even somebody that the person really dislikes. So the person might dislike somebody, but the love loves. The love loves. Question, is trauma karma? Depends how you look at karma, but I would say that yes, trauma is karma. But I don't look at karma as in because you were bad in a previous life, you now have trauma in this life. I look at it as just the karma of one thing leading to another. Like action, it's life, it's the movement of things. Cool, finished them in YouTube chat. Let's go to Skype. So I have a missed call from Christopher Hawkins. Oh, I just answered your question. Do you still want me to call you? Yeah, just call me if you want me to call you back, Christopher. Call me. Cancel. I've got to go. Oh, sorry, Anya. Alexi, I would like to chat if possible. Yes. Ready? Now? Lexi, if you're ready, give me the thumbs up and I will call you. Cool. Okay. I just have to turn my volume off so it doesn't blast anyone. Hello? Hey, Alexi. I can't currently hear you. Is that me or you? Hello? Yeah, maybe you want to check your settings, Alexi, for your audio. You can do a Skype test. If you go to Skype and you go to audio and video settings, you can do a Skype test and sort out. And then let me know when you've done that. Cool. It could be me, but I think it's you. So I answered your question, what is love? How deep does it go? Dowie. I had a short experience that showed me that most stress... Oh, I've answered that. What is your perspective on reincarnation? Well, I think that nothing can leave this world. So nothing dies and disappears out of this world. But I don't think there is a solid self that gets reincarnated. I think that there is energies, beliefs, ideas, memories that get reborn, but it doesn't belong to an entity. Yes, because who you are isn't that entity. So now there is ideas and thoughts arising about you, and energies arising, but that doesn't belong to someone. Like that, the you, the character that you believe yourself to be, isn't actually alive. That's so funky, isn't it? It's like, wow, there isn't actually a you alive. So what's experiencing now isn't a person. that person isn't alive. It's thoughts and feelings arising, giving the appearance that there is somebody there alive that can have another life. You, as, I forgot your name, whoever your name is, isn't alive. What's alive now, what's conscious, is consciousness and the I am. The person is not conscious. The person is a mirage happening. A mirage. Hey, Isabel. Yeah, we can give it another go. Let me just turn off your audio. Hey! Yeah, I can hear you now.
Awesome.
Cool. How can I help you today or not help you?
Yeah, I'm calling just because so basically, like, I'd say like 5 years ago, I had sort of an awakening, and then over time, it just like naturally sorted itself. And a couple months back, I had the exact same experience that you described, of like waking up in your sleep.
Yeah.
And then just having like no separation at all.
Mm.
And I feel like life has like taken care of everything quite smoothly. But one area that I'm not necessarily struggling with, but I'm just curious about is like work.
Yeah.
Because like I hear a lot of people talk about how to go beyond the separation and how to like see through the ego, but I don't hear a lot of speakers talk about like after the shift when you're just living, like things just seem to happen, but I don't know, I'm just, you know,
And so
I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, totally. It's like a different way of living. And
Yeah.
what's work got to do with it? Like how to earn money when you when you see life from this different perspective. Is this what you mean, or how
Yeah,
to?
that is kind of what I mean.
Yeah.
Because like I worked quite a lot, and then just naturally I was able to take time off to really focus on. I mean, there was so much momentum going into spirituality and into non-duality that it kind of felt like I had no other choice. It just happened that way.
Mm.
And now I'm feeling an energy of like I would like to go back into the world. And I am, but I'm just sometimes I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally. Of what to do or how to do it.
Yeah, just kind of like transitioning from like living in an ashram to then living into the world.
Mm. And
Yeah.
is that where you currently live? You live in an ashram, or you just mean like remotely?
Well, I ended up moving like up north with my family, and I had a very secluded life for about a year.
Mm.
Like I was just like meditating. I mean, I was just sitting a lot, and I did work a bit now and then, but it wasn't like a a normal job
Yeah.
for society. And now I've like moved into the city, and things have just naturally shifted. And I feel movement in me of like I would like to have a more consistent work. And I think I'm just like trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's a big subject, and I'm sure there's lots of people that can relate.
Right.
I just give myself a moment and see what comes.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'd say on the human level, our natural urge is to be creative. And that can take many forms. It doesn't have any biases of like that you have to be a drawer or a writer or painter or like a musician. I mean, like just doing accounts is incredibly creative. Yeah, the way the mind is used. So I think that there is a natural urge to be creative. I think when you're often going through awakenings and shifting and looking at life differently, there is a retreating from the world. And then once that begins to settle, there is an urge to go back into the world and to use your creativity. So I would just suggest, or I don't even know if it's a suggestion, but what would come is to look into what creativity is there. You know, what creativity is enjoyed, and what creativity wants to be shared. Like, in what way do you want to share your creativity? But then also realizing the challenges of this society, that you will be going into a society that's working from the premise of separation and duality. So our society is structured in a dualistic way where it's subject-object. So there is the challenge of working in a world which is from a different mindset, you know, once you've had these shifts. So last week I think there was somebody on speaking about how they could no longer teach because they realized they didn't fit in with their way of being, the way the education system wanted them to teach. So it's also being realistic about you know, about how society works, that it is from a dualistic perspective, but then also like tuning into your creativity. You know, what are your creative tools? And then it's commitment and perseverance to that chosen path. One thing that I look at now, you know, is when I look back to when I was younger, is I spent a lot of my time when I was younger, you know, doubting myself and changing from one thing to another because I didn't have confidence in myself. Like when I was younger, I used to play the drums and I loved playing the drums, but because I wasn't excellent straight away, I thought I wasn't good enough at it. And I didn't have the perspective that it's just about perseverance and practice. Like, and I was actually did have a bit of a natural flow for it. And if I'd had that perspective of perseverance and commitment to it, then I'm sure I would have gone on to have a career in drumming. But because I had this low self-esteem and the story arose, I wasn't brilliant at it straight away, then I didn't have a natural talent for it and I wasn't good enough. I just quit. So there was a lot of quitting. And often what it is it's you find what you're creative at, and then there's a commitment to it, a realistic commitment to it. And through time you will grow, and it might take years and years to grow and make money from that, but or for it to come back to you. But it's it's really commitment to that, and that's something we can find hard in this society because it is dualistic. And I don't know if the education system and society is so supportive of that idea. I think it's more supportive of competitiveness, in this. And also I think that, originally, apparently, I don't know if this is true, but from what I've read, that the education system was set up in order to produce factory workers. As the industrial age started and they needed factory workers, they needed a certain level of education. And so the factories used to invest in schools, into group schools. And so there is, I suspect, like an undercurrent, an undercurrent push from the education system to push us into companies, into company work, like working for a big company, which there's nothing wrong with, but that's not so much on the premise of being really good at your chosen creativity. It's more on the premise of working for a company and being good at taking orders and commands and working in a team, which is also useful. And competitiveness is like a different way of being. So the education system doesn't teach that. It's kind of like the old way of educating before we had schools, was that you'd have parents and you'd learn your parents' trade, and you'd spend your first 10, 20 years just focusing on one trade and becoming really brilliant at it. I'm not saying that's the right way to do things. The education system also has great things, because your parents might not educate you very well. But yeah. So that's my perspective on it. But I don't know if out of any of that rant you'll be able to find something that's useful for you.
That's very clarifying. Because I feel like naturally, it's like I've just been able to sing, and it feels really good, and other people feel very good when they hear me sing. And so I am focusing on that. But then there's just like the very, like the human part of living, which is like I have to make money somehow.
Yeah, there's so many ways that you can make money from singing, though, immediately. Like I always thought that people that sing, have out of the creative arts, like if you play an instrument or sing, there's ways from doing small concerts to doing parties, busking. There's lots of ways. Like I went into writing, and writing isn't quite so easy to like do those two type of things. That's what I always think, but maybe I'm being naive and that it's also very difficult.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm just starting out, so I feel like I'm just like a blank slate because I don't know yet. But that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, thank you for your question, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Christopher says, I thought this kind of answer would piss me off, but I have been feeling clearer since I received your answer. Thank you. I cannot remember what I answered, Christopher, but fantastic. There was one missed call from live ICMAHER22. If you want to call, just write call me and I'll call you. If not, we're going to start our meditation. But it might have been an accident. Oh, Ivan, that's very sweet. Thank you. Oh yes, so Alexi, there's people writing stuff in the chat box, so towards the side. So it says there's lots of decentralized ways to sing, like through NFTs and websites that allow monetization for creators that aren't super famous. Great. Yeah. Thanks for saying that. Get selected. Yes. And I'm sure there's things like that for writers now as well. Question. Okay, one more question, then we meditate. We have to do the meditation. Me and my partner were laughing so much at a voice that we sometimes do last night, or that I do, where it's maybe not funny. Okay, moving on. Question. Who was your favorite drummer? I work as a professional drummer. That's so cool you used to play. Hey Adam, I always think about getting a, maybe I do that when we finish renovating our house, is getting a electric drum kit. You know, problem when I was a child is I had a drum kit in my room, and so there was limitations. I don't know. I think Phil Collins is super good, but I don't know. I didn't really study drummers, and who my favorite drummer was. I'm sure my drum teacher was really awesome. Yeah, I really loved it. Yeah, I just couldn't take knockbacks, you know. I just crumbled. I remember like all my teachers laughing because my I used to practice at school, and it used to be right near the teacher's staff room, and they wanted me to play drums. But at the same time, like they used to make jokes about it because I think it used to drive them crazy doing that. Yeah. But yeah, I think I was actually all right. You know, I most probably wasn't the most naturally talented drummer in the beginning, but I think if I'd persevered and committed to it, I could have become really good. But yeah, nice to meet a fellow drummer. Yeah, I loved it. It was like such a great release, and like the physicality of it, you know, like really, yeah. It was. But I remember the first time I played with people, I began to, maybe you can recognize this too, like the pressure of keeping the beat. And I most probably wasn't experienced enough to play with people, but I suppose you have to like jump off the deep end, but like being responsible for keeping the beat for people, and like staying on that beat and not speeding up and then ending the song. And I was just like, oh, this is so much, you're responsible for so much. And then people would laugh at me because I'd speed it up, and I just couldn't take it. Like at the time I didn't have that, you know, that momentum in the mind that says you can do this. Everybody gets knocked back, you just have to pick yourself up again. That's part of it. And it's just commitment. There's some things that you just naturally, most probably, don't want to pursue. Yeah. I find practicing, because when you're playing drums, you have to be really in the moment. Like, I totally agree with you. It's the same. I used to act as a child as well, and it's the same thing. You have to really be present. You can't like you can't think of other things when you're playing drums. That's when you'll begin to lose it, unless maybe you're like really, really experienced, but it's so quick and intimate playing the drums. You're moving so fast and you're moving so many parts of your body. Like it's maybe different, like if you're playing the kit, it's maybe different from other instruments. I mean, I suppose you've got the piano with the finger movements, but you've got your foot might be going off beat, and then you're doing the snare drum and another beat, and then you're changing from one to the other with the it's really something. I loved it. Yeah. Yeah, totally. And that's what I think I loved most probably about playing the drums, and also acting as well when I was a child, is that you really have to be present to the experience. As soon as you're thinking and going off into something else or into suffering, you kind of totally lose it. Yeah, one of the hardest instruments out there because it uses all four limbs. Yeah, so hard. My drum teacher used to be really cool. He used to do these duets where he would like get us using every part of the drum. So we'd be using like the rim, like it was just like amazing. Like yeah, I thought he was really cool, my drum teacher. And we'd play together. I think for my GCSE music, we did like a massive duet, and I think that I most probably totally flunked the written, so it was like really dependent on that. Yeah, present to respond and react to the band as well. Yeah, it's inspiring me to maybe buy myself an electric drum kit when I have the space. Okay, let's go to meditation. Music. Okay. Danke, everybody. Yeah, it's really lovely to speak to you all, and thank you for people that asked questions and participated. Yeah, it's really beautiful to hear from you. And I wish you everything, every goddamn thing. Not just one thing or two things or three things, but everything. Yeah. See you next week. Bye.